Would peace be better served by operating from the standpoint of liberalism, realism, a combination of the two? In analyzing this question, we can look specifically at the United Nations, which brings together very diverse governments and decision-makers. First, what is the role of the United Nations? The UN is an intergovernmental organization. To understand the challenges facing the UN, it is useful to examine the organization's background and structure. The charter establishing the UN was created by representatives from 51 governments in 1945. Chapter 1 of the UN Charter suggests that the purposes of the UN include efforts to promote peace and security, to support principles of equality and self-governance of all people, to support human rights, freedom, and justice, to help governments in pursuit of mutually supportive objectives. The Charter further calls on member governments to abstain from threats and violence against any other governments, to assist the UN in carrying out its purposes, and to abstain from aiding any government against which the UN is taking actions. The enforcement of the UN Charter depends on the resources and support that member governments give to the UN. The UN consists of 5 major divisions: the General Assembly, the Security Council, the Economic and Social Council, the International Court of Justice and the Secretariat. The General Assembly is a large body, whose members include representatives from all states belonging to the UN. Today, the UN has 193 member states. Each state has 1 vote in the General Assembly. The General Assembly has the authority to debate and render advisory recommendations on any matter involving international politics relating to UN purposes. In essence, this means that the General Assembly debates issues of broad scope, ranging from promoting peace to ending violations of human rights. Very importantly, however, the General Assembly cannot enact its own recommendations. The Security Council is smaller but much more powerful than the General Assembly. The Security Council has 5 permanent members: the United States, Russia, China, France, and the United Kingdom. Each permanent member has a veto power that can be used to prevent a council decision. In addition to the permanent members, 10 other members are elected by the General Assembly to 2-year terms on the Security Council. The Security Council has the authority to enact sanctions against hostile states, to call for ceasefire plans in the event of conflict, to send peacekeeping forces to a conflict, and to authorize military actions by member states. In peacekeeping operations called into being by the Security Council, UN member governments provide troops on a voluntary basis, and the governments, not the Security Council, exercise final authority over their own troops. For example, that a country that commits military personnel to a peacekeeping mission can withdraw its personnel at its own discretion. The Economic and Social Council, made up of 54 members, oversees UN projects on economic development, human rights, and environmental issues. This council reports to the General Assembly. The range of international political issues within the jurisdiction of the Economic and Social Council is indicated by the variety of commissions under its authority, as shown in this slide. These include: Commission on Population and Development, Commission for Social Development, Commission on the Status of Women, among others. The International Court of Justice, also known as the World Court, it issues advisory opinions and hears legal cases involving states. The court consists of 15 members who serve 9-year terms. Members are elected by the General Assembly and Security Council. The members of the World Court are not to be spokespeople for their individual countries but, rather, are to decide cases and issue opinions in an impartial manner. Only cases involving states, not individuals, are decided by the court. Recent World Court cases have involved fishing controversies between Spain and Canada. Disputes over crimes of genocide involving Bosnia and Yugoslavia. and disputes between Australia and Japan over whaling in the Antarctic. The UN Secretariat, directed by the Secretary-General, does the job of administering the work of the previous 4 organs. In addition to these 5 divisions, the UN also includes a number of departments, such as the World Health Organization, the Office of the UN High Commissioner for Refugees, the UN Children's Fund, and the UN Development Programme, UNDP. These departments support a variety of international programs. For example, the WHO carries out programs that provide assistance relating to HIV, children's health, tropical diseases, drug management, food safety, tuberculosis, and most recently the COVID-19 global pandemic. How effective can the UN be in working for peace and justice? 3 factors suggest that the UN does have the potential to be effective. First, it provides a forum for international debate among diverse governments, and this debate can foster greater understanding among countries. In turn, greater understanding can promote diplomatic and non-violent relations among states, UN proponents suggest. Second, the record has shown that the UN can be effective in increasing levels of military security, as emphasized by realism, and human security, as emphasized by liberalism. This can be seen in the following examples. The UN has helped to negotiate more than 170 peaceful settlements of conflict since 1945. It has funded immunization, nutrition, health, and education programs in more than 100 countries. The UN efforts have been central to campaigns to eradicate smallpox and polio. It has overseen nuclear reactor inspections, and thus reduced the possibility of nuclear proliferation. According to UN advocates, success stories such as these indicate that the UN is not simply a hollow organization, unable to shape international decision-making. Surely, there are still many other issues that the UN has not yet produced tangible results, most notably climate change, inequality and refugee crisis. Third, insofar as the UN routinely works in cooperation with NGOs and civil society, it provides citizens and social movements an arena for participating in politics, beyond the borders of their own countries. For example, the Subcommittee on Racism, Racial Discrimination, Apartheid, and Colonialism, is one human rights NGO, whose members have worked closely with the UN to develop non-discrimination policies. By linking people and movements to UN programs, NGOs can provide alternative models of analysis, perhaps beyond both liberalism and realism, that take into account perspectives other than those of superpowers and politicians. Also, there are 2 important factors that point to the limitations of the UN. First, as mentioned previously, the UN depends on its member states. Member states provide funding and, in the event of peacekeeping and military operations, troops. For example, in 1994 the Secretary-General requested 35,000 peacekeeping troops for Bosnia-Herzegovina, but member states contributed only 7,600. Pakistan, Bangladesh, India, Ghana, and Uruguay are the top 5 states, in terms of contributing military personnel to UN peacekeeping missions. Whereas Pakistan contributed 5,252 troops to UN peacekeeping efforts. The United States provided only 430 security personnel. As these examples illustrate, the UN as an organization is indeed in a subordinate relationship relative to states. Second, just as the UN reflects a hierarchy, with the Security Council possessing considerably more power than the General Assembly, the governments on which the UN depends exist in a hierarchy. Some critics contend, the UN is mainly dominated by superpower states, such as the United States, Russia, and China. Rather than providing a forum for peacefully mediating disputes, to the mutual benefit of member states, the UN serves the interests of the powerful, and cannot effectively provide an independent, equal perspective on world issues. Whether the UN can be effective, as you can see, is unclear, as is the fate of state sovereignty, in the case of UN interventions. International politics is no longer characterized by the bipolar relations that shaped the post-World War II period. The end of bipolarism raises fundamental questions about the role of the UN. The UN's effectiveness is one of the questions dividing international observers in the post-bipolar world.